Right. Good evening, everybody. The night is June 4th, 2024. Welcome to the Housing Committee meeting of the National Board of Eleven. I am John Green. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm calling this meeting order at 6:36 p.m. Before we begin, there are a few grounds. No one is speaking to the planning floor. Community board members, if you have a question about board business and or wish to please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. If you raise your hand, please click the participants icon and use the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. Please keep your questions and your comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or a comment about the subject on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. And I'll also be here to give you word joined tonight by Kareem Nixon or the member of the committee on the staff. And so now what we do now is call the roll.
Okay. All right, members, please be advised there are technically 10 members for the committee. So we would need 6 for quorum, but if one person is not here, then we would need only 5, just so we can conduct business, okay?
Because we have a new commissioner, Glenn, we have to speak up.
So I'm saying we have 10 members for this committee, 6 are needed for quorum. If one person isn't here, then it'll be shifted down to 5 needed for quorum, okay? Just so business can be conducted. No problem. Adem Briha? Thank you. John Green? Here. Thank you. Joanne Lawson? Wilfredo Lopez? Here. Beverly McFarland? Beverly Pabon.
Present.
Thank you. Claudia Perez?
Present.
Thank you. Cynthia Ramos?
Present.
Thank you. Don Sanders? Thank you. Candy Vives Vasquez?
Here.
Thank you. Jason Wu? So, yes, 7 present, you have 1.
Thank you. First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the committee. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much. First of all, the adoption of the agenda was first on the board's website, and it has been, so it's been made available. If there are no objections, the agenda will be adopted.
I'm sorry, I can't hear from a distance. I can't hear anything. I'm sorry, can you speak louder?
We're going over the agenda and accepting it right now, Candy.
Okay.
Do you have any objections?
Seeing no objections, the agenda is adopted. There are no minutes to be approved because there is a meeting last month. So that's basically we can go on to our next subject. Okay, announcements. Does anyone have any?
Candy has her hand raised.
Candy?
Hi, good evening. So, the 116th Street Block Association is a housing ambassador. And so we're doing, we're helping people this week with filling out the NYCHA Section 8. And because of the weather, we were gonna do a pop-out outside in front of the office so people from the street would also be aware of it. But if you could just spread the word that until Friday, we're going to be helping people out, just filling it out. It's not extensive, it's not long, but we will be assisting for those who are not, are not able to do it in a computer. We're here to help them out with that. So that's between 1 and 3 o'clock this week. Because you know that the NYCHA Section 8 is only for until Sunday. 11:59 PM to apply. So we are trying to encourage as many people, and we're trying to help enough people to apply. So that's just my announcement.
Thank you, Candy.
Can I ask her a question?
Sure. That's the one.
Oh, two. Candy, are you saying that people only had, after 15 years, people only have a week to apply for Section 8 housing through NYCHA? And
That's-
that after that, they will not have a chance to do that?
I don't know if they'll close that portal for the Section 8 because we've been doing it for for years for the individuals on a daily basis. But it seems like the wait list, according to the New York City Housing Authority, and I don't know if you guys have seen it all announcements on New York One and everywhere else. They're only doing it for 5 days. It's a short mini application, which is very crazy, but yeah. So that's why we're trying to encourage enough people to know about it. And if they need assistance, then we're here to help them out. I mean, that's part of also our neighborhood preservation that we do as our, housing assistance that we provide.
Thank you, Candy. Beverly?
Hi, Candy. My question is regarding the weekend. So, people can still, get assistance or fill out these applications even on the weekends, and not counting that as, non-business days?
No, we're not open on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Because I'll be short staffed, but if anybody wants to have it done, that Saturday and I have Friday is what we're doing, so until Friday. But anyone else, I mean, they can go into the portal. It's just very basic questions. And then once they call them in, of course, through the whole process of eligibility, then they ask for updated documents. But in the meantime, I encourage everybody to tell everyone about it. The website is on the NYCHA's portal, and it takes you right to that wait list. And it's very basic. It's not really a lot of questions. It's like about a 15-minute application. But if there's any questions anybody has, they can even call us. We also are helping people through the phone if they can't make it in person. But we really would like to make sure that everybody get their foot in the door and just be on that wait list. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it's only for those days. They should extend it till at least Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not acceptable. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Candy. Are there any other questions?
Okay.
I do. I have a question, if I may. I'm sorry. With this, because I've been looking over, because NYCHA, as you know, has been doing this transformation, and everything that they're doing with the transformation plan, Red Pack, it includes the Section 8. So to me, this is them pushing along the process to eliminate Section 9 public housing. I just needed to say that on the record. It looks like a good thing, but again, we have to beware of things coming to us as it takes away from other substantial housing preservation in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
I'm sorry, Claudia, just for operation's sake, please wait to be recognized by the chair and also state your name for the record. We didn't know that you were speaking until John just stated that you were speaking, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Claudia.
Any other questions? Okay, next we have
Sorry, we have an attendee who does have their hand raised. I don't know if you want to acknowledge them. This is a Joyce Major.
Okay, Ms. Major?
Joyce, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I have my hand up by mistake. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. Okay, there's any information about okay, we're moving right along. Presentations in this way. Request for a letter of support where the community rented that pathways to community ownership and real affordability. The New York City Community Land Initiative, NYCCLI, provides support regarding bills to bring well-ended housing affordability and increase community ownership. Are Will and Cameron here?
Yep, we are. We're right here on Zoom.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm gonna share my screen really quickly. Actually, I need yeah, thank you so much. All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm a medical student at Columbia and an environmental justice fellow at We Act for Environmental Justice. We're a Harlem-based environmental justice and advocacy organization. And Will, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name is Will Spizak. I'm a senior program associate at New Economy Project. We're a citywide organization that works to build a new economy that works for all, based on racial and economic justice. And we help to coordinate and facilitate the New York City Community Land Initiative and the Community Land Act campaign.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why we came here to speak with you all tonight. We wanted to talk with you about the Community Land Act and sort of the opportunity that it affords East Harlem. So just to give a really quick overview of housing and land use in East Harlem, I'm sure my family is from Harlem and Queens, and I'm sure if you're from this area, that it's historically been like a really rich neighborhood for working class folks of color, but it's also been historically very underinvested in, and that's led to a lot of consequences regarding folks' quality of life. So you see in some of the statistics that I'm going to show, East Harlem outstrips the rest of Manhattan when it comes to poverty. It's towards the top when it comes to maintenance deficiencies among housing. And these statistics are outdated, but it's in terms of rent burden, it's also near the top, with actually more than 50% of the population currently being rent burdened. In addition, East Harlem has high rates of changes in inflation adjusted rent. Relative to the rest of the city, we have high rates of eviction filings. We have high rates of heat vulnerability, which is sort of an index that measures the amount of green space in a community, as well as the number of members of the community that are vulnerable to extreme heat. So that's folks who are dealing with chronic conditions, folks who are elderly, folks who might need assistance in the event of a heat emergency. And just sharing some of the statistics from the community neighborhood profiles. East Harlem in particular is particularly flood vulnerable, both from storm flooding and from sort of ocean swells and river flooding. It has a higher than normal or higher than the rest of Manhattan poverty measure. And according to the community board's needs assessment, affordable housing and homelessness are two of the top three pressing issues identified by the community board. So I think there's a lot of statistics that I just threw at you, but I think for me it really comes down to like three critical questions, which are one, who has the power to bring the things that we want to our community? So if that's parks, then parks. If that's gardens, if that's housing, if that's supermarkets, if we're in a food desert, who has the power to bring those things into our community? Number two, who has the power to block the things that we don't want? So that's things like sewage treatment plants. That's things like bus depots. That's things like landfills and incinerators and all of these different facilities that are creating pollution. And number three, who benefits when our community changes? So when we see those positive changes in the communities, when we see the Starbucks on the corner or the Whole Foods nearby, who is actually benefiting? Is it members of the community that have lived here our entire lives, that have worked here, that have raised families here, or is it folks who are coming from outside of the community who might not share the same interests as our community members? And are folks being displaced when those new changes start to be implemented? So, for me, the one of the solutions to all of these questions comes in the form of community participation. You know, in contrast to some of the other communities that we could name in Manhattan, elsewhere in the city, you know, Harlem and East Harlem in particular has not historically been given a say in terms of the things that are built in our neighborhood. Instead of parks, we're getting power plants, and when we do get housing, it's not affordable housing, it tends to be luxury housing. And as these neighborhoods are improved and as changes start to happen, it more often than not, it's longtime residents who are displaced by those unaffordable housing costs. So there's this huge disparity in terms between the world that we want to live in with, you know, affordable housing, with public parks and gardens and homes and essential services in the world that we're living in, which is trending towards, you know, unaffordable housing and a lack of community resources. And so I think that's where community land trusts can actually come in to sort of bridge that gap. For folks who aren't familiar with sort of the history of community land trust, they actually came out of, you know, the legacy of working against segregation in the Deep South. There was an organization called New Communities, Inc., which was composed of folks who were working against racial injustice, and because of that, they were evicted and unable to purchase housing in Albany and Georgia. And so they actually banded together and collectively purchased property, and they were able to use that strategy to create, you know, collectively owned housing and land use and farming for their community. And so essentially what this model is, and it's been sort of, you know, transplanted and modified over the years and used in all these different contexts around the world, is you have this three-way split where you have, you know, the community via community land trust actually owns the land beneath a building, and they rent it out via, you know, usually a 99-year ground lease that has a couple of terms that allow whoever is the resident owner of the building above the land to continue to sort of own their building just as they would, as long as they are ensuring, you know, permanent affordability for folks that are residing in that building. So, you know, there's some resale price restrictions and essentially stuff like that, but essentially it ensures that whoever is coming in and building on this land has that responsibility to make sure that that building remains permanently affordable for the members of that community.
Cameron, there's a request to speak louder if possible.
Oh, yeah, I'll speak up, my fault. Yeah, so additionally, you know, we have this split ownership. So we have this split ownership model in this ground lease, and it still enables folks to make improvements on your land. But it ensures when you resell it that whoever takes it over from you will still be responsible for that commitment to permanent affordability. And so this has been used in a variety of different housing models. So it's been used for single family homes, for co-ops, for housing associations, for multifamily rentals, and it's applicable for all of these different models. In addition, it's applicable for non-housing uses. So if a community decides that what its priority is say something like small businesses, if its priority is something like supermarkets or urban agriculture, or maybe we need more green spaces, or maybe we need more sort of you know, community centers or open community spaces or third places, then we can use that community ownership of land to prioritize, you know, investing in more of the resources that we actually need in our community. And finally, you know, there's the model that ensures accountability is this tripartite, so a three-part board. So it's composed of one part of the board is residents of the buildings that are in this community land trust. A second part could potentially be interested community members, so maybe folks that live in the neighborhood. And a third part could be, you know, businesses, it could be housing experts, it could be, you know, city officials, public employees. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but essentially it ensures that there's, you know, accountability between all of these three parts so that ultimately the community's interests are represented. And so this is a movement that's, you know, been going on for a long time, and it's actually established in New York City. I think we actually might have a member of, or the president of our East Harlem El Barrio Community Land Trust, who has, you know, actively worked and acquired land through this process, and is currently, you know, making this land, turning this land and these buildings into affordable units for residents of East Harlem. But it exists in every borough of the city, in various stages of development, and they're continuing to grow and continuing to advocate for more land from the city. And so now I'm going to pass it to Will, who's going to talk a little bit about the Community Land Act and how that can support community land trusts.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron. So, and you don't mind navigating the slides for me, that'd be great. So yeah, so as Cameron was talking about, I think the key takeaway here is that we know that when land is treated as a commodity, when it's bought and sold by investors and speculators, it means that the community suffers, because the community ultimately doesn't get to decide what gets built, where, and for who. But investors, many of whom are probably far removed from the community, don't live in the neighborhood, et cetera, are the ones making that decision. So we are in a position with this growing movement of community land trusts, where more and more CLTs are mobilizing, are organized, and now they're asking, how do we actually acquire that land to keep it off the speculative market permanently and make sure that it is always used for the benefit of the community. So some groups have figured out ways to do it using public land, one group that has purchased property on the market, but we know that there's just so much real estate in New York that we need new laws in the city to help CLTs acquire that property. So we have a package of bills called the Community Land Act, and we're going to walk you through how these bills will help community land trusts and others acquire property to keep it from speculative investment. Let's go to the first slide. So there's really 4 components to the Community Land Act bill package, and these are all at the city level. So the first one we'll talk about is the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, or COPA, which would be a private market intervention, right? An opportunity for community land trusts to acquire properties that are currently privately owned. So that's one strategy. And we also have a Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act at the state level. So we're asking the city to pass a resolution in support of that bill. So we'll talk a little bit about those differences. But in addition to trying to help CLTs and others acquire property on the private market, we also know that there's public land out there that the city owns and has historically given or sold that land at below market value to private developers so that they can build housing that's usually not affordable to the people in that community. So with this legacy of giving land away to private interests, we now are demanding the passage of Public Land for Public Good, a bill that would prioritize CLTs when public land disposition is happening. And then lastly, there's this gray area between public and private. It's when private property, is owned by an entity or a person who is falling behind on their tax payments. And when it's an individual, when it's a family, we want to do what we can to make sure that those families stay in the community, that they can catch up with their arrears on their tax bills and don't get displaced, which happens unfortunately all too often now. On the other hand, there's a lot of bad actors and investors and speculators who are also collecting rent from tenants and not paying their taxes. And we think there has to be a way to get those properties out of their hands and onto community land trusts. So we'll talk a little bit about our goal to replace the New York City tax lien sale. Let's go to the next one. So we have been building this movement for a long time, this campaign, and we have tremendous support in all different areas of the city. So we've been able to mobilize 2/3 of city council members to co-sponsor COPA and the Public Land for Public Good bill. That's a veto-proof majority. So if we can get this passed in city council with that kind of support, we'd love to have the mayor supporting it, but we don't even need it, right? We can override that veto, although we need the administration to implement it. We also have 2/3 of city council members already committed to not reauthorizing the lien sale. So they recognize it's harmful, and they're standing with us to make sure that we get a replacement system that keeps people in their homes and transfers property when possible to CLTs. And then over 130 different community groups, including community land trusts, community development corporations, tenant associations, CDFIs, community-based organizations, religious, faith-based communities, all kinds of groups have signed on as endorsers of the Community Land Act. So we have a really broad coalition of folks signed on. Go to the next one. And then you might ask, is this popular across the city? It turns out that it is. There were some surveys done that we were able to get some data on this, and 80% of voters in New York City support social housing, including COTs, as well as other models like preserving public housing, as one member already mentioned, is a really important strategy. 72% of voters supported Intro 78, prioritizing nonprofit developers for public land, right? So that's our public land for public good bill. So that's very popular. And 60% of voters have said that the city should financially support nonprofits and COTs to build more housing. And then lastly, 82% of voters expressed support for TOPA. So overall, we have tremendous support from New York City voters and tremendous support from our elected officials. So we're going to just talk a little bit more about the bills individually. We don't need to go too into detail because you can get lost in the weeds of these bills, but just to give a high-level overview. The first one is this bill, the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. So what this bill does is it gives COTs and other qualified nonprofit entities a right to make a first offer on a multifamily building when a landlord decides to sell. So to be absolutely clear, this is not eminent domain. This is not, a taking of the property. This still allows the landlord to be involved in deciding how much they want to sell their property for. All it does is it gives the COT that right of first refusal, the right to make that offer and match offers on the open market. So essentially gets us a foot in the door. It's modeled on successful legislation in places like San Francisco, where they have COPA, and Washington, D.C., where they have a TOPA, 10 Opportunity to Purchase bill that's been around for decades. And there are many other communities around the country that have used Opportunity to Purchase legislation as well. And it engages New York City's robust nonprofit housing sector. I think we often forget how deep our community organizing and our CDC movement has been and has developed this tremendous sector that can really take on all these opportunities. And as you saw with that map, the CLT movement is growing by leaps and bounds every year. So there's more and more groups that are interested in using COPA to take land off the speculative market. So a good case study of how this might work is our friends in East New York. The East New York Community Land Trust is a COT based out in Brooklyn. And they recently have been organizing tenants at this building at 248 Arlington, where unfortunately a landlord acquired it a few years back with the intention of trying to make a big profit, right? What that meant was he bought it, wanted to cut services, wanted to use all the loopholes in the rent stabilization laws to evict tenants and raise the rents. But then the 2019 rent laws happened, and he wasn't able to take advantage of vacancy decontrol and things like that. So he was stuck with the building. He paid too much money for it, thinking that he was going to make a huge profit, and he let it kind of fall into disrepair. So working with the tenants, the community land trust approached the landlord and said, hey, we know you don't really seem to want to take care of this building. The tenants are fed up with it. We're willing to buy it so we can put it on our community land trust. They negotiated a deal. They did private fundraising, and they were able to acquire the property. So this is a great example of how COPA can work, where landlords and the community land trust can come together and negotiate. The landlord walked away with a little bit of a profit, and the community land trust now owns this property and will be converting it into the COT, will continue to own the land, and these rental properties, these rental units will be converted to limited equity co-op structure. So the tenants will be co-op shareholders, owners of the property that sits on the COT. So we're hoping that we can replicate this model by passing COPA and allowing COTs around the city to take advantage of it to acquire property off the market like East New York did. Go to the next one. The next bill is public land for public good. So if COPA is our private land acquisition strategy, public land for public good is our public land acquisition strategy. It requires New York City to prioritize qualified COTs and nonprofits when they're disposing of city-owned land to ensure that the public land is used for public good. So most public land dispositions have been to for-profit developers, which have exacerbated gentrification and displacement over the years. And this model in particular encourages more collaboration between nonprofits and for-profit developers, particularly MWBEs, through the use of joint ventures, right? So it positions COTs and nonprofits in a really advantageous place where MWBEs and other for-profit developers could come to them and say, let's work out a joint venture deal that will help to build community wealth and permanent affordability at the same time. So public land dispositions around the city have been concentrated in lower income Black and brown neighborhoods that need the deepest levels of affordability. That's where the city had historically acquired a lot of land, particularly during the 70s and the 80s, and now is in the process of disposing of that land. So you can see from the map that East Harlem is one of those communities where there's been a lot of public land disposition. We'll go to the next slide. But unfortunately, what we've seen is that most of the housing that's built on that public land that's disposed, often to for-profit developers, is not built affordable for the community that lives there. So here's just a few numbers, right, that we were able to run in some research that found that in most neighborhoods of color that had the highest public land dispositions over the last decade or so, saw that the majority of these units were not affordable. In East Harlem, in particular, 72% of the units that were built on this land that was formerly public and given to private developers was not affordable to the median resident in that neighborhood, right? So we're not building the housing that communities actually need. We're not building the housing affordable enough because a lot of those for-profit developers need to build into their model how they're going to generate a profit, how they're going to pay their investors, how they're going to, benefit from this in the long run. So nonprofit developers, and we've ran the numbers in our research, continuously have a better track record of building deeper levels of affordability. And it just makes sense. When you cut out the profit motive, you don't have to charge as much rent, and it allows for deeper levels of affordability. We'll go to the next one. And an important thing about the public land for public good bill is that it doesn't just apply to housing. There's a lot of need out there for different uses, land uses that Cameron mentioned, community centers, green space, environmental space, things along those lines, community gardens. A great example of what we've been trying to elevate is what's happening in the Bronx and Mont Haven, Port Morris. The community land stewards there have been organizing for years to take back the old site of Lincoln Hospital, which has been abandoned for a couple of decades now, but was the historic site of the hospital where the Young Lords and the Black Panthers famously took over the building and started to use it for community health purposes after having been ignored by the hospital for many years. So now the South Bronx Unite and the Mont Haven Community Land Stewards have successfully lobbied to get the city to transfer this land to the Community Land Trust. It's a huge win. And what they're going to do there is build what they call the Hearts Center, or Health, Education, and the Arts. It's a community center that's going to focus on bringing holistic health, education services for youth, and arts as a community center for the neighborhood. So they're actively working on putting together the plan and raising the financing to implement it. But it's a great example of what public land for public good can do, right? So many hospitals You know, I'm thinking most of you like St. Vincent Hospital, right, was abandoned, was shut down, leaving the community with less health services than before. And in its place, we got luxury housing that neighborhood couldn't even, you know, neighbors in the community couldn't even afford. So this is a great example of if we can pass public land for public good, the kind of projects we can expect to see popping up across our neighborhoods. Next one. Very quickly, we also are trying to get the city to pass a resolution calling for the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. This is a little bit different from COPA, or the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, because it gives tenants the direct right to purchase their building outright or to partner with a community land trust or a qualified nonprofit purchaser to buy the building. So it works a lot like COPA, but it's a little bit broader and allows tenants to make the action directly. There's a reason we're not pushing for that at the city level. We think it wouldn't stand up to a legal challenge at the city level. So that's why we have two different bills, but they can actually work together to make sure that all buildings, or at least most buildings in the city, would be covered by one or the other, and would allow tenants greater opportunity and bandwidth to acquire their properties as collective ownership structures. And then lastly, we are working to abolish and replace the tax lien sale, as I had mentioned. And the reason we're doing this is so many of those tax liens that are sold to a private debt collectors through an investor-backed trust are concentrated, again, in those same neighborhoods, low-income, working-class communities of color. And we are trying to replace it with a system that keeps people in their homes. So we know there's a lot of small homeowners that are, you know, unfortunately fall behind on their taxes. And as a result, they get their liens sold to a private debt collector that tacks on all kinds of interest and fees. And they fall deeper and deeper into debt, and then they lose the home. And that, you know, generational wealth that was being developed is all of a sudden gone. So we want to find ways to prevent that from happening, help people qualify for their tax exemptions, help them, you know, enter into payment plans, prevent them from falling into that cycle. And a community land trust is one way that we could help if all other options fail, to have the CLT acquire the land and the homeowner remain the owner of the improvements if they were, you know, unable to work out another arrangement with the city. But perhaps even more importantly is that there's a lot of multifamily buildings that fall into the tax lien sale. And ultimately, who suffers is the tenants, right? The landlords can often walk away at some point, allow the, you know, the in-rem foreclosure process to go through. And as a result, they've profited from their time owning the building, collecting rents, not paying their taxes, and then they let the building go through the foreclosure process and walk away from it. Meanwhile, the tenants have not received any of the you know, services, upgrades, or maintenance that they should have during that time period. So we think there's a great way to, again, keep people in their homes, but also provide an option where CLTs can then acquire those properties so that we can reinvest in the homes and keep it off of that kind of speculative market where you see a lot of these properties change hands year after year. They flip these properties maybe every 2-3 years. And it's almost impossible for some of these tenants to even know who their landlord is, let alone know if they're paying their taxes or not, right? So we think that there's a great way to reform the system, and we're currently in negotiation with the administration to implement some of our changes. So we're hopefully going to see that come out soon. So that is the Community Land Act. These are the 4 pillars, if you will, of the bill package. And we're hoping that tonight we can get your support as we try and build momentum this year to get these bills passed and hopefully create new channels, new opportunities for communities to take control of their neighborhoods, to take land off the speculative market and make sure that land and housing, community centers, grocery stores, community gardens are available for the community at affordable prices for the foreseeable future. So yes, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us. We're happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Wilbur Cameron, for the presentation. I have a question. Is this letter of support time sensitive?
I'm sorry, is this time sensitive?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So yeah, so we are trying to get these bills passed this year before the end of the year. We're likely going to see a hearing come up sometime late summer, early fall. So we're trying to get as many community boards signed on before the hearing. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking for. So the sooner the better, but of course, you know, you might have a process that might take a few weeks. We completely understand.
Well, under normal circumstances, it goes from one meeting to the next. But since technically this is our last meeting of the year, we do not need to get into September. But I just want to clarify, Khalid, could this be passed on to the executive committee?
If you would like to do that, if the committee opts to push it forward for this month's executive, you can opt to do that. Or if you want to take the summer to consider it and then vote for the next one, you can do that as well.
You know, the thing is that we vote on what, having providing the, support, and then they can, vote on by time and say. Yes, I have a question after you. I'm not. Oh, ask.
Okay, so thank you again so much for your presentation. Just curious to know who are the main opponents? I mean, I hope that's not a rhetorical question, but wondering who the main opponents are and, you know, what are some of the unintended consequences that you guys are working through to make sure that this is, you know, everything works out well?
Yeah, great question. I could take some of this, Cameron, feel free to jump in. So I mean, in terms of opposition, right? You might be able to guess there's a real estate pushback. The real estate industry doesn't like this idea that we might be able to intervene in the market. They certainly don't like the idea that public land dispositions would be prioritized to COTs or nonprofits when they have profited so handsomely from public land disposition deals in the past. Although we try to emphasize that we do want to see joint ventures between COTs and for-profit developers, and we think that would be beneficial for everyone. But they don't like to share in the sandbox. So we do have that opposition. One thing I'll mention in terms of unintended consequences, or we're trying to think through very carefully, is we want to make sure that there isn't undue burden on particularly small property owners, the mom and pops, if you will. So for instance, in the Community Opportunity of Purchase Act, we do have a hardship exemption, right? Because there's timelines that a landlord would have to work with. They'd have to give the COTs a window of time to put in offer and get the finances together. So we understand that for some homeowners, some property owners, that might not be an option. So they can, fill out a waiver that would allow them to kind of move through the process quicker. So we want to make sure that that's clear and that's available to everyone. And that's the other thing, we've talked about is we want to make sure the timeline is reasonable. We don't want, it to be ineffective because it's too short. But we also don't want it to be too long that it makes, real estate transactions, almost impossible to execute. So finding that balance is something we're currently negotiating with the administration and with City Council to try and get it as, the sweet spot that we can find. Cameron, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, for sure. I've given this presentation at a few community boards so far in Upper Manhattan primarily. And a really good question that came up, I think it was at CB9, was around, what qualifies as a community land trust, and, whether there might be some, nonprofits in Northern Manhattan that, own a bunch of land that, maybe someone could think of that like maybe aren't acting as responsible landlords, and whether they would qualify as a community land trust. And so I think that's actually one of the things that we've been trying to address in this bill is, making sure that the definition for a CLT is clear, that it's established, that, there would have to be an approval process to actually get approved as like a qualified sort of housing nonprofit, and that, the community would be given input as to whether like a qualified nonprofit would be able to stay and maintain that eligibility. So if, you know, there was a bad actor that was not doing right by some of the terms of its responsibility to tenants or to the community, that it would be able to get removed from that list of eligible or qualified nonprofits.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's more a comment than a question, but just going back to the first right of refusal. I mean, the timing on that could be an issue, and I think it's hard to throw a blanket period of time where, you know, a land trust could get their finances or close a deal. You know, not every offer is gonna stay on the table, you know, a private offer. People can pull those offers in the time that you guys are trying to get financing or whatever. So, I mean, I know that's a challenge. I think that the landlords and landowners should have some say in how long that process takes, because, you know, sometimes an offer could be on the table for 2 weeks, another time it could be offered for 6 months. People that are looking to buy properties aren't gonna keep that money on the sidelines. They'll look for other deals, so that is a little bit concerning.
Yeah, and just to, if I could just respond, you know, I think that's something that, yeah, we've definitely been thinking about and wanting to, you know, we want to be fair. But we also know that, you know, there's just a lot of transactions that happen in the city. So we know that for probably the overwhelming majority of property transactions, there may not be a COT interested in them, which means that, you know, the process may go pretty quickly because no one, you know, no COT, no qualified entity would want to bid on it. But we do know that particularly in buildings where there's already tenant organizing happening, that's kind of where we imagine that the Community Opportunity Purchase Act would be most impactful. When there's already a tenant association that's organized, that's in most cases probably pushing for their landlord to make a sale because it's very clear that he's not or she's not interested in investing in the building, and you know they're not happy with you know the relationship. That's where, you know, we think that we would have the most success, and that's probably with some of the worst landlords in the city, people on that like worst landlord watch list. But we imagine that there would of course be a lot of properties that you know COTs or nonprofits are not interested in.
Can I just follow up to that?
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, I hear everything you're saying and I agree with that. There might be a way to tailor it more specifically because sometimes these things have unintended consequences, you know. That if you put that rule in for everybody, and I do understand there's places it should be applied. It could apply though to people it wasn't meant to apply to. So, I mean, that's just, I agree with you, but there might be a way to kind of narrow that down and not make it a one size fits all. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate that, and we think HPD is very instructive in helping to think through that unintended consequence conversation.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you, Will and Cameron, for your presentation. Your programs, the bills that you have there, like the public land for public good. Most of the properties that they're speaking about is mostly private owned buildings. What about the tenants who live in city owned properties?
Yeah, absolutely. So with public land dispositions, in many times they are vacant land, but in other situations they might be occupied. And actually, we have the example of East Harlem El Barrio COT, which is a community land trust that has 4 buildings, if I'm not mistaken, all of which were city-owned property. So we would love for public land for public good to be able to be used to help facilitate some of those transactions as well, so we can replicate what East Harlem El Barrio has done. And you know, they've recently completed a renovation on a project. You may not believe this, but the city is a terrible landlord at times and has allowed their buildings to fall into complete disrepair. And East Harlem El Barrio has done a Herculean effort to renovate those buildings while maintaining affordability. So we're trying to see if we can use public land for public good to replicate that.
Right, just to follow up in regards to that project we were just speaking of, a lot of the buildings that the East Harlem El Barrio land trust got was from the TIL programs. And there's still a lot of TIL buildings who are still waiting very patiently, you know, we are, what's it really, to have the program, funded. You know, it's not that it wasn't something that the tenants were doing, it was just that the city had stopped funding. So, I was very much involved when the, East Harlem Community Land Trust came about. And one of the things I had a little issue was that they were taking lands from the tenant interim lease programs. And, I don't see anything within any of these, bills that will give these tenants opportunity to participate who are still waiting for home ownership. And the TIL program did and has been since the '70s, been supplying affordable home ownership opportunities. So now we see a lot of new programs that's coming up, and everybody's just pushing the total tenants who are still waiting for the rehabilitation. And we're, we don't get the same type of opportunities to own, and we've been managing the buildings for more than 25 years.
Yeah,
So
thank you for highlighting that. I'm wondering, Rosa, do you have any comments that you want to add? So we do have Rosa from the East
Yes.
Harlem here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosa Custodio. I'm the president from East Harlem Barrio Community Land Trust. Correct. We actually have also, they just threw us in the last minute for HDFC, but for rental. I wanted to have it for shareholder because I'm experienced as a shareholder HDFC. But again, through the guidelines of the commitment through HPD, they want HDFC rental. So it's gonna be the first time to do rental. I prefer shareholders. Yes, I agree. I will share anyone that's interested. I want to expand another program for HDFC shareholders.
Yes, and Rosa, I just wanted to mention the situation with East Harlem Barrio Community Land Trust. Many folks might not know this, but so the one CLT that we had in the city for decades was the Cooper Square Community Land Trust, which was a shareholder model, but a renter to shareholder model. But then for many years, there was no community land trust developed, and the city was pretty much convinced that we couldn't do community land trusts in New York. That was not going to happen. So our coalition and the folks in East Harlem Barrio were mobilizing to create a demonstration project, a pilot, to show that it's still possible to do a community land trust. So East Harlem Barrio COT was very much the guinea pig that this whole movement that's coming up right now is based on. So they've really taken their punches and had to go through the ringer with HPD to get us to this point. So like Rosa was saying, they were really adamant about an HDFC rental model, all that kind of stuff on the CLT. Today, HPD is singing a different tune. They recognize that there's a lot of different structures, limited equity co-ops and shared equity models on top of CLTs, single family home ownership on top of CLTs like we have in Queens and parts of Brooklyn that we're seeing. So they've really come a long way because we've been dragging them along. To recognizing the different types of models that CLTs can support. So we would definitely love to see, in programs like, working with the TIL program, that the city honors those commitments and we create, affordable homeownership opportunities. And, a CLT can be a vehicle to support that.
My last question is regarding the COPA. Community opportunity. You have, there's an organization called Joe NYC. Are y'all part of that entity? Because I see some of the members of that is part of, this initiative also. And how do y'all two work together? From what I understand is that the Joe NYC is a group of nonprofit organizations who pull together and to buy properties or to help each other out to, I guess when Adam was speaking, might not have the money at that time to make that purchase price. So are y'all working and hand in hand in order to, facilitate these programs?
Yeah, so we are not a member of Joe NYC, but we do work with the Joe NYC and the members. They are endorsers of the Community Land Act as well. And yeah, they have a really innovative model of pooled balance sheet that allows them to leverage more resources to acquire properties. So the Community Land Trust movement, we have been learning from the Joe NYC. We're actually working on trying to create some kind of central server model as well, similar to what the Joe NYC does, that would allow us to pool the resources of community land trusts to, you know, help leverage them for acquisition, financing, and renovation and rehab work and things along those lines. So we're still in early stages of that, but that is definitely a group that we're learning from and trying to see if we can replicate that.
All right, thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you, Beverly. Will?
In terms of the tax lien sale provision, is that legislation or is that a policy change that you're seeking?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So it started out when we put the package together as more of a principle because we didn't have the specific legislation in place yet as we were still working on trying to figure out what that would look like. But we do have a couple of bills that have now been introduced. They're still kind of being negotiated with the City Council, Council Finance, and the administration. And we're probably going to see another bill introduced in the next week or two that, you know, might help to bring about some of these changes. So we'll definitely update folks as things, you know, progress. But when we ask people to sign on to the Community Land Act, that's the one piece that's more about a principle about replacing the lien sale with something that's more equitable and, you know, preserves housing as opposed to allowing the investor-backed trust to, you know, tack on more, you know, interest and fees and things like that.
If I could just follow up with a quick comment, very quickly. One of the thoughts that we had as a committee in one of our previous meetings is about pausing the tax burden, especially for folks that are impacted by the exit and sunset of 421A. So basically, when they're sunsetting out of that program, rolling back the tax burden to what the purchase price would have been when they purchased 35 or 30 or 35 years ago, in order to kind of, you know, ease the burden a little bit and not, you know, increase the tax burden immediately, considering the value of the home would, you know, over 35 years is gonna quadruple or quintuple, especially in neighborhoods like ours. Is that something that you would consider as part of this legislation?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Definitely something we'd be happy to bring back to the coalition and discuss. I think that would, correct me if I'm wrong, probably require state level action, but that's definitely something that we can, you know, if there's like a resolution or something on those lines, we could probably get behind.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Will. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Candy online.
Candy?
Yes, hi. Thank you for that presentation. I do have a couple of, well, I have a question and then the other one will be a comment. So in the CLT, I know Rosa for many years and I know how she's been struggling with the HDFC, and just like my colleague Beverly as well, you know, I'm familiar and have been giving technical assistance to people with the TIL program and converting them, seeing them through the whole process of the HDFC. So what, to me, it seems like it's a replication of what you has been doing with the city for over decades. And I just, I don't know if you understand that when a community-based organization is getting a deed that is given to them for doing a housing development, that deed specifically HPD has within that deed stating that if they default on the fact that they're no longer capable or able to fulfill that commitment of which where that land was, what the intention of that housing is supposed to be, then it does get turned back to the city, and the community is the one that makes a decision on doing, you know, site control and the whole process all over again, or do, you know, take possession of that particular development. As far as you know, there's not a lot of landlords that are bad actors. It's just the fact that not a lot of tenants are paying their rent, let's be real. So there's two ways of everything. We have to look at things both ways, right? So in order for a building to stay maintained, it has to be operating with funds. And if majority of the people not paying the rent, there is no way that building is going to function properly. So of course, what's going to happen is that either something has to happen with between the city and the landlords, and I mean property owners, because there are mom and pops. I'm not looking at the big giant companies, but it's just that there should be a some type of agreement or compromisement where they can give them some type of an abatement to compromise for the fact that, especially now with the tenants, that if they can't stay, they get evicted, they still can't stay up to a whole year in an apartment, based on what that judge gives that judgment. So there are different new rules that are coming out that I see your presentation, it has to correlate with that, because at the end of the day, the water department does not forgive you at all, where you can probably get away with doing something with the property tax and get an abatement or something, where you can probably get away with, maybe they can probably work with your interest fees or whatever it is. But what I'm trying to say is that this your presentation and the various of acts you want to have, they really have to be reconsidered crafted in a different way. Now with me, with the CLT, I would prefer that if it's going to be a community land trust, I would prefer to see 50% of the members of every community that has a community land trust to be on that board, not 1% or 2%, because then it's not a community land trust. And so that would be very important, and it'll really engage the residents of that community to have some type of ownership of being guardians and stewards of that property. So I think that tonight, to give an answer right now, and I wish that you could have given us more time, because this is something that we have to, the resolution is just it looks like it's a bundle in a package, and it really needs to be dissected in order for some things to be on a resolution. I think it in a bundle. I don't know, but that's my comment. That's my, as an individual board member,
Sure. And if I could
that's
just respond to that, Candy, really
sure.
appreciate that perspective and the history of the HDFC movement. I think one of the key things about the community land trust is just the scale that COTs are often able to acquire. So I think Cooper Square COT is a perfect example that, they have nearly 400 units. They have 22 commercial spaces on their properties. And what they do is they use the rents from those commercial properties to cross-subsidize to keep, the maintenance cost, the carrying fee, lower for the residential properties. So I think that's one of the things that CLTs have been successful at, that maybe some of the older HDFC models have not. But of course, there are always going to be challenges. And yes, I think your point too, people have to pay their carrying charges. They have to pay their maintenance or rent or whatever it might be. That's absolutely correct. I think, one of the things is there are mom and pop landlords in New York City. They are a shrinking pool of the population. Big real estate investors are overwhelmingly the owners of property in New York. And we're seeing that more and more. So we want to create pathways to prevent that from becoming, the overwhelming majority, if not completely wiping out community ownership. So that's what one of the goals of this is. And then the other thing you mentioned that I think is really important, about folks not paying, is, sometimes, of course, there are nefarious people who don't pay their, taxes, or they don't pay their rent, or they don't pay their maintenance fees. Sometimes people really do just run into challenges, right? I think also you recently had some folks on the COT that were struggling, and I think we're able to work with them to try and figure something out, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you very much. Now, are there any other questions?
May I? Sorry.
Somebody says.
Hi. Hello, may I ask a question, answer to the question that Candace? Correct, just to let you know, we have 5 seat holder in the community and 5 out of the community. And then, 3 for resident in the seats, so it's gonna be total, 14 seats. So we do have other members in and around the community in the COT that sits in the board. And we allow only 6 years our limit term. So some of them already exit out the term out, and then we have to wait for a year and then return back. So that's the bylaws. I just was out and I just returned back because I'm interested. I started this program from the beginning and I want to complete the mission that we started the thing. So it's correct. It's a lot. I like to get involved. Housing is a big issue and healthy living environments, and it's correct. Rent is number 1 and income is number 2. And the income is not matching with the rent.
Thank you very much. That person.
Yes, my last question, yes, this is my last question. In regards to the land acts that you have listed, are any of them open to having any additions or something added or any conditions that can be, put to this?
Yeah, so we are in ongoing negotiations with the administration and the council to refine the bills. So, we had some suggestions that we offered to Councilmember Rivera, who is the lead sponsor of COPA, for instance. And she's currently working on trying to get those changes incorporated. And I'm sure through negotiation, some aspects will change. So we're always open to hearing community input so that we can communicate that to the administration as we're negotiating those details. And we recognize that, the bills as we've crafted them may change in that process. But that being said, we're committed to the principles of these bills and want to make sure that the details are, thought through very carefully and, reflect all the input that we can get from all the endorsers. And, that we're working in good faith with the administration to pass the best bills we can.
Any other questions? Now, I'm going to say this. I feel that the people would like to discuss this before making a motion or having a letter of support. Now, but what that means is that you would have to push this over until the September meeting in order to do that. So if you feel that way, if anybody, a motion has been made to put this over to September, correctly?
Well, no, I guess since it's the recess, then you can explicitly state that. Normally, you would take just a month, but.
Yes.
Realistically, when would we be discussing this? Like, are we gonna have a September meeting? Are we gonna? I'm just saying, cause like to push this off, which I know it's our procedure, but are we gonna realistically, is there gonna be another discussion amongst this committee about this? And then I guess secondly, cause in principle, I support all this, but we're talking about details that haven't been ironed out. So if we approve this or give a letter of support now, will there be another opportunity for us to comment once the details have been given? Cause we may support this as it is, and then there might be details implemented that we don't agree with. So are we gonna have a second bite at the apple, I guess would be my question.
I guess what we can look at is these bills have not been heard yet by the city council, so there still needs to be a hearing. What we can potentially do, and the hearing schedule, the way it typically works is June is all budget, July, there's very few, if any, hearings, August, no hearings whatsoever. September, that's when kind of they kick off. So the earliest I think that this bill is going to be heard is going to be in September. We can perhaps offer testimony in order to help, illuminate the city council on what our issues are. That would be along the same lines as our discussion would be for, a letter of support. So, I think in that sense, we would have another bite at the apple. If there's a September hearing, likely a September, October kind of time frame. So there is other opportunities for discussion.
Thank you, Will. So if the committee is willing to hold this hold, because I know there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and but it's, I know no one wants to vote for something and that they're really not sure about. So if you want to push this over until our next meeting, then we can do it. Yes, ma'am.
Just point of clarification, so we're not thinking about the executive meeting at all anymore? Is this?
Sorry.
No.
I just don't like the idea of us letting that committee, which I'm a member of, make decisions. That's we should hold the power here.
Yeah.
This is supposed
That's
to be. the
right.
committee that makes those decisions.
I might have missed that. Okay, so.
Sorry.
So basically, the consensus is that to hold this over and discuss this a lot harder.
Yes.
So I would make a motion to push it, to push this forward, to sit down.
I make a motion to push this issue over into September.
Second. We'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed?
I have a question.
I mean.
Candy has,
Didn't finish the vote.
We can finish the vote.
yeah, you all in favor, and then there were none.
I'm
no
abstaining.
opposed, none abstaining.
Because,
Any abstentions?
yeah, I'm abstaining.
Okay, one abstention.
Okay.
I think this is very urgent.
Motion.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, two abstentions.
Okay, so we have 8 committee members to abstain, that means 6 voted in favor.
Yeah.
So your motion is to abstain. Okay.
Now,
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
You said.
Excuse me, Will, Cameron, can we get a copy of your presentation, please?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. If we could get a copy.
Absolutely, yeah, we can send you a copy of the presentation.
That is appreciated. Again, thank you for your presentation, and because I know you were supposed to present last month, but we appreciate you coming back and thank you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
If you have any questions in the interim, feel free to reach out and let us know.
That is appreciated, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, well, the reason why there's a cast of thousands behind me. I want to be like Cecily. Continue committee discussion, draft resolution for the reprogram for the 421A tax rate. Okay. Now. We. Cody, is that draft resolution available to be put up on the screen?
I don't even know if I have access to, give me 1 second.
We have a hand.
Isn't it on the, is that still has to put, like, make a statement before you do this?
I can't hear you guys. Can you speak louder, please?
All right, Kenny, yes, 1 second, John, you have to recognize people to speak as.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so it's Tamika, so the 421A expired. So my recommendation is try to do a resolution to try to protect the apartments that's already expired for the 421A, because it's not coming back. We have 485W, but it's only for new development. So we want to really see how we're gonna protect the existing properties that we have. So writing a resolution to protect the property now will be the best solution because there's no more 421A that expired already.
Well,
And we
that's,
just that window.
well, that's what we said, we wanted to, have a program where where it's less painful for people who are currently there. But we also wanted to add something else to it. Because we'll actually help you out with this, is that that a program that's placed there for all, for homeowners to get to financial empowerment. Because the thing is that I'm going to go back to something that State Senator Cordell said to us when she talked to us in January. Said there are some people who are engaged in this, that all they thought was paying the mortgage like paying the rent, and that's it, and there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, so we want any and all programs that will prevent those pitfalls from happening again. And also the thing is that I also want to put in that resolution that the city council for fiscal year 26, that they provide more funding for the land tax program where the taxes are discounted. Where seniors that make below a certain level of income, they pay less. Because the thing is that that's done in most states, and I think it should be done in New York City as well. I do a little research. I have a relative homeowner in another state, and he explained to me that they have that in his state now. Also, I have to also thank Angel Muscane, because he brought to my attention that city of New York has the same program. But the thing is that there's a lot of programs going around, but people don't know about it. So the thing is that we want to bring this to light and also make sure that there's enough funding in the future. So any and all that can apply for this program can take advantage of it. You can ask 2 questions.
Oh, okay, just one, two, okay, so,
I do that.
I think there was one meeting that I, chaired on your behalf, where, we did talk more about this and we started to, put resolution information up. I mean, we've been talking about a resolution for a long time, but.
Very long time, John.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I had different hair color and everything. It was a while back, but,
Yeah.
but we did start trying to put, we have like 3 or 4 versions at this point, so.
I'm sorry, John, but, don't forget, 421A does not exist anymore.
Yes.
So the thing is to also, the people that moved in at that time were working, and now you have, most of them are seniors now, and what is going to happen to them? I spoke to Wilfredo about that also. I mean, that is, a common issue between, I think, all of us here, and we only have a few. There were hundreds of buildings built like this all over the city, all over the city. So what's gonna happen to like thousands of people that are in this situation?
Well, I'm going to say this. Thing is that we'll do a resolution, but the thing is that things like this are not immediate. That's the sad part about it.
John, we know that.
The thing is, y'all know, you know, government runs as slow as molasses going up hills everywhere. So the thing is that what we can do is that we can hope that once we basically complete the resolution, that city and state government will listen, that they will act, and that it will be beneficial to everybody concerned.
But we, like I said, we're also concerned now that the tax has already started.
we've already gotten the big increases, 19, 20%, 17%, plus assessments, plus mortgages. Especially the seniors now that are on fixed incomes, because like I'm there 23 years, you know, so, and I'm sure half of my crew here is there since the beginning also. What happens with people like us, that our social security is certainly way less than what we have to pay.
This is true, and the thing is that I really don't have a stock answer for you, but the thing is that, but we'll do all that we can to make sure that government acts in your best interest. Well,
So I guess the question that is being posed is, since 421 doesn't exist, then I think that the current language in the resolution may be moved. So I think it's more of like, do we want to, as a committee, take on the mantle of coming up with new language to design a program that would be beneficial to the people who are being impacted by it, so that hopefully someone at the city or state level takes that suggestion, because really that's what a resolution is. It's a recommendation, as opposed to trying to, work out the language of something that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
and it's above our pay grade anyway.
It's a bit above our pay grade. I don't know, did y'all get paid this week?
And we'll talking about something about a tax lien freezing sales or something like that.
So very much to.
Can't hear.
Am I recognized? Sorry, I wanna make sure procedure. So very much in the sense of what they were talking about, rewriting how tax lien sales occur. Right now, the way they occur is, he has opinions. The way they occur is the city sets, a time, they set up, property X is up for sale, and then they have, a auction. That's how the property system works. The way we were kind of tinkering with it is, before we even get there, the city has a few opportunities to pause that and give the existing landlord an opportunity to save that property. The way they've done it in the past is they'll put a permanent hold on it, which will allow that landlord to, once they decide to sell, then the city can recoup whatever tax is owed, but the owner still keeps the equity minus whatever tax is owed. The thought that we had was, well, wouldn't it be great is you bought your property 35 years ago, it was worth X.
25.
Yeah, but let's just say 35 years, that's the maximum amount of time for the 421A, right? So you bought your property 35 years ago, and let's say you bought it for 120K. Throughout the last 35 years, you refinanced, you made improvements, now your property's worth 400,000. Taxes are due now based on $400,000, which you could never, ever thinking about. Well, wouldn't it be great if we could turn back the clock and set the tax rate for people exiting? They have to be above a certain age group. I think 62 is probably the right place.
Yeah.
Well, above 62, I think would make the most sense. At that point, we freeze your assessed value for taxes at what the purchase price would have been 35 years ago. And I think that that's inequitable, because the city needs some tax revenue.
Right.
And I think everyone in the room would agree to that. At some point, the city needs, they need their cut of it as well. So it helps the city, but at the same time, it doesn't burden, individuals who are not currently earning the same levels that they were earning when they purchased 35 years.
Well,
So.
Well, thank you so much. I'm just.
I'm sorry I'm standing, I'm just trying to make sure he's okay.
I'm helping out just for,
Thank you.
John stepped away, but, does this language have like a number or catchphrase at this point? I thought there was like a number.
We actually discussed this in this committee,
Right.
2 months ago.
But didn't we have did it have a, not like 480, didn't it have a number?
Well, what Tamika brought up before, the 45W
Yeah.
is.
Or 85W.
Yeah.
Only for new.
That's for new. There was a proposal last year's state budget that had the 45W tag as well. It did have some like provisions for current owners. They scrapped it.
Oh.
When they passed it in this year's budget, they eliminated
Can we
any,
get that language?
I could look up last year's budget. I think I
Yeah.
have it somewhere, in my notes. And I can try to pull that up. And worst case scenario, you know, they typically keep the stuff on the
Yeah.
state website a few years.
And what is that about the freezing sales that you were talking?
Well, no, that,
Yeah.
so the freezing of the tax lien, that's been done in the past. Under the Blasio administration, there was a 4-year freeze on all tax lien sales.
Right.
During the pandemic, they did it as well. The city has the power to say, okay, we're gonna freeze, we're not gonna take action on tax lien sales, but it's a policy, it's not legislation. So, you know, if we wanna make it something permanent, there does have to be some action both at the state and at the city level. So the resolution would have to, you know, hopefully compel a state actor to propose this at the state level, and then, you know, the city would have to have an accompanying bill. So it's a 2-step process.
So is that what this committee is?
Well, that's what I'm offering, as an idea. Whether or not the committee agrees, I mean, everyone would have to kind of discuss that and figure that out.
Let's pause just for a second, because we're at our 8 o'clock mark and I'm standing in for our chair. Can we just say that we're gonna get the lost language of 485W, resurrect it and put that into our resolution? Because that means that language already went through bill drafting, was already approved.
Yeah.
And that would be the language we would use for our resolution, no? And then we just, then we need another sponsor, we just need another sponsor to resurrect that portion of that bill.
Yeah.
And on the, you're saying media sponsors, city, state, and.
Well, no, we for the 45W, it would have to be a state bill. That would
Okay,
have to be a state bill.
so
For the tax lien portion, the freezing of it, that would have to be a city.
that's city.
And that could be a separate issue altogether.
So I'm gonna, do we need to vote on, resurrecting this resurrecting 485W
As a committee, you can opt to do however you please. If you wanna approve this draft language tonight, you could do that. If you wanna push it to next session, you can do that. If you wanna,
They said there is no 421A any longer, so doing
so
this.
I'm giving, exactly. You go over, you can go over the language
It's a
in the
moot
draft
point.
and edit the language as you see fit and consider that for the next month or the forthcoming months. As a committee, you guys have options to do as you fit, as long as you just go on.
So, but,
And also Candy has her hand raised just
I'm
before you
sorry,
guys go
Mike,
any.
but I'm talking, but do any of you?
Yes.
so wait,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take over the meeting for a second, but you said we have an unresolved question still on the table?
Candy has her
Okay,
hand
so
raised.
we have a board member and then we'll open it up.
Thank you.
Okay, Candy?
Okay, I have two comments, and one of is a question. Did anyone have a meeting like for the 21A? Did your building have any meeting with the Department of Finance to see if maybe you can come up with the abatement that they're giving to the homeowners and condo and co-op owners that they're giving abatements for? That's one question. The other thing is that since we no longer have the 421A, we need to redraft the wording and the language. I mean,
Exactly, can't
you know.
But.
I can't hear. I'm honestly, can I say something too? I've been saying since this meeting started, if you guys can speak louder, because it wouldn't be fair then for us to vote on something we really don't hear very well about. You know, I won't. So
Turn your volume up all the way
I
up.
did. It's the highest that I've got.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
that you guys are far from the microphone.
Okay, well, thank you, Candy, for bringing that up. Meeting with Department of Finance about, getting that abatement established.
Yeah, Candy, do you hear me?
Yeah.
You can come up here.
Yeah. And
I
just,
know.
just take a few minutes to address her and then let's try to come up with a plan.
Candy, Do you hear me, Candy?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, it's Judith, as you know. Yeah, we were discussing, a lot of the buildings, had discussions with people. And, basically, as you know, you were the first one when I got on this board that talked to you about this, right?
Yep.
Okay, and now we're at the cliff. Actually, we have 1 foot over the cliff at this point. So the thing is our management company actually manages both of our buildings. We do have a form that says condo and co-op tax abatement, which they said they will fill out a year before the actual 421A expired, but it actually expires in what, 2027?
Yours is.
Yeah, 2027, so that they will fill out that form in 2026, which says the condo and co-op abatement. So we're gonna fill that one out, but we don't know what's gonna happen with that either. I mean,
We're gonna try to stay positive. Just pause for a second. The chief is back. And I just want to make sure we are
Yeah.
doing the next pieces of what we're supposed to do.
Well, I heard what.
Oh, okay.
So, but the thing is that I understand that there's a lot going on, there's a lot of concern, and and justifiably so. Because the thing is that it's something that when this ended, the governor tried to put another program in place, it was shot down. They put something new, but it doesn't apply to anybody in this room. So that means you still have a problem. Now,
and that I think was shut down also with Brad Landa. He wasn't really in favor of because he wants all the taxes. So it was Brad Landa.
But you consider, you're talking about money and since they say money is due, he wants it.
Yeah.
Basically. But you know, it's basically what when a person deals with money, they want what's due to them, so.
No, we understand that, and we've all been paying mortgages, paying assessments, paying maintenance.
Right.
And the point is when you get to a certain, everybody was working when we came in here, and Candy knows, she's the first one that I met when I got on this board 100 years ago. And you can laugh, Candy, because you know that's true. And we spoke about this, and I even spoke about it with Robert Rodriguez, remember?
Right.
Well, you were.
Yeah, we gotta do the STAR program.
Yeah, so the point is like I said, when people bought in, when they were working, they figured this was my last shot because you weren't able to own anything else in order to buy these apartments, and we got in by lottery. So you were not allowed to own anything, and the lottery put us in. So now, when you reach a certain age and you're no longer working, what happens to you? And that is the issue that we're concerned about.
Okay, because now, okay, here's
I'll go back to my.
here's what I'm going to say about all this. Now, the thing is that someone very well said that technically addressing anything about 421 is basically addressing something that's dead in the water.
Right.
So the thing is that the best thing that we can do is we can still put together a resolution, but the thing is that as Will said, have put in there, says put in a program where like I said, the pain of paying property taxes is lessened. Even if it's something like if the taxes are rolled back to what the value of the property was when you first bought it. Now, yes.
I was gonna say, the other option that Don brought up was resurrecting the language that was excluded from last year's budget on 45W, the one that actually would have apply to everyone in the room, to existing owners. That's another option that we have available to us.
Well, could it be placed in both, can both be placed in the resolution?
Yeah, I would think yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
'cause-
Can I also mention, Chair, that there was one person who was waiting very patiently to be recognized
Yes,
from the group?
yes. Thanks. Yeah, I just have a question just to understand what the resolution actually is, because it's my understanding now, and I could be mistaken, because we, in our building in 1825, it hasn't actually started expiring yet, but it was my impression that the building would get assessed a certain amount, say, yes, $700,000. And then the taxes would be divided up amongst however many shares you have. So is this resolution saying that, okay, it would be, everybody would be assessed at the 2004 when the building was built, or is it I bought in 2004, somebody else bought in 2016, everybody would have their own different thing, because I'm just imagining that might be a logistical nightmare for whoever does the billing.
Mr. Chair, can I be recognized to answer? I guess the real answer is you can sign it however, you see fit. I think the proportional way could be worked where depending on how mature those shares are. But in 2004 versus you bought in at 2010.
Yeah.
You bought in at a much higher price than 2004 person, so it would be proportional based on your purchase price and the purchase date.
I don't know how much their building is assessed for, but we just found out our building is assessed for $24,000.
What?
Oh.
I mean, 24.
You need a hearing.
No resolution. I'll buy the whole building.
I'll pass the hat, I think we'll buy the building.
If you buy the building, you got it.
I'm sorry.
24 million.
I made a mistake. It's 24 million,
Yeah.
and our building is the biggest
Yeah.
out of that.
So yours gets divided further, you're
Yeah.
luckier.
We're 129 apartments.
Yeah.
They only have like, what,
91.
92 or 90, yeah.
91 shares.
What?
No, I'm not asking you a question, I'm just raising my hand. I'm new to the committee, if maybe Will, you know this, 485W,
Yeah.
did it apply to everybody or just the seniors?
No, actually 45W, the version that passed. In this year's budget, Tamika, you went up and advocated on this one. So you probably have a lot more recent understanding of it. Only applies to new construction, so it's
Okay.
forward looking. So it's, if you're a developer and you're looking to develop
Right.
new property and you want a tax abatement looking forward, it applies. There was no mention whatsoever.
But the one that got shot down,
The one that got shut down, the old version
Right.
of 85W had provisions in place to protect current owners, but it wasn't like all encompassing. Mr. Chair, can we recognize Tamika? She has additional details.
So the 485W is only for rentals only, so that's the difference between the 421A and the 485.
okay,
New York State, saying we have a homeless problem and we need to provide housing, but they're going shifting to the renter side of things now because they no longer what's in the state of New York.
Yeah.
So that's the shift that we're going through. So now, our job is trying to figure out how we're gonna protect the existing homeowners that we have in our community. And they come from various things, pull-up condos, 3-family homes, brownstones. We all have a tax situation. You got lease reserve, and we're trying to figure out how can CB11 be in the forefront of making sure we protect the home ownership that we have, instead of going back to just a renters.
no, I get all that, I think what I was trying to ask was, because if something got shot down, the likelihood of reviving that and getting it approved is not maybe the best, so maybe it's something, like I thought what you said in the beginning about it applying to a certain age group over
Yeah.
62 or whatever, I'm gonna be honest with you. if somebody came in their thirties or whatever, I think they should be paying what it is today. Everybody's taxes are going up like crazy.
Yeah.
But there's a big issue with housing for seniors and all that and the prices you bought. So, I mean, I also don't know, I feel like there's urgency to a lot of these things and then we just keep kicking the can down.
If I can say this, right now, there's nothing that can be done.
Right.
In the immediacy. The reason why is the session ends in literally 3 days. Yeah, well, they extended it to Friday now.
Okay.
So 3 days, this session's over. So anything that would be introduced, we're looking at January.
Oh, wow.
So there is literally nothing that can be
It
done
wouldn't matter, yeah.
that would change it outside of an executive action,
Okay.
which is not gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. So there's immediacy, yes, but I also think that there's opportunity for us over the next, can't say 6 months because we're not meeting for 2 months. But over the next 4 months to maybe draft something comprehensive enough that we can deliver to a Cordell player who is a champion on this. To say, hey, this is a great idea that came from the community. Can you work this up into bill language and, try to get it into this year's budget as something? Or, we are lucky enough to have within our, recent catchment area, the housing chair in the assembly, Linda Rosenthal, she's
Right.
on the west side. These are the kind of wonky ideas that she goes for. She loves those ideas. So, that's what I'm envisioning, but again, committee has to kind of, it's committee work. So we have to kind of agree that that is something we want to take on. Someone said Herculean, this is beyond Herculean, because it's a lot of work.
It's also the people in your commit, in your.
It's
In your area.
This committee's here to help represent the people in the community.
It's, yeah.
And also it means.
Can I say something?
I'm gonna say this nasty two-word phrase, summer school.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Hi, this is Candy. I wanna, I know that we're kicking the can around how to make this solution for our residents. And I know that while we get a solution in place, what we can do as community board members for our residents is to get a hold of Department of Finance. They're the hardest one, but there's a hearing we can do. Get your documents of you saying your assessment and see if you can have a hearing where that assessment, they can see if you're in a distress or something is happening in the building where you cannot afford it, and they can, because they can adjust it. Like I said, the water board is not the same like property tax, but there's an adjustment that can be done. And for those that are seniors, there are programs that they will give you the exemption, but I think that the whole entire building should be assessed on a property level. And then individually, since everyone has bought in as shareholders on different years and they have however the value to your unit is, but in the meantime, if we can get someone to come in and listen to what we're trying to do in working with our residents to make sure they maintain and keep their home ownership without it being rent burden as well, because like Judith we've been trying to see what we can do to actually get to where we want to get to, and we don't want to wait till at the last minute they're also then with nothing, and then they become renters and not shareholders in order for them to buy in to get into any type of help. And I don't think that's fair, because it's bad enough the TIL program has been kicked around, and look at the ACFCs, they're still waiting to become homeowners. So why should we wait for that to happen until January or something, where we can probably do, to me, it's like a quick surgery, and get someone from the Department of Finance to come in and say, hey, we're the community board. We want to have a hearing or a meeting with you and all these buildings that are at stake with the 421 that got left up in the air, because that's what they did. They're leaving everybody up in the air, and we don't know yet what we're going to do. It's not fair. That plan should have been in place even before they knew it was going to be over, and then create a new one. for the new developments, but we need to work with what is existing right now. And I know that there's a department of hearing department, and there's a judge there that will be willing to listen. I could be wrong. You all can say whatever, but I know that that exists. And I've worked with other people that are homeowners about to lose their house, and they're seniors because they had to go back to work in order to pay for their mortgage and all their other expenses of the for the municipalities, right? So they gave her an abatement. So I'm just saying, if that works for her, it can work for, the residents here.
Thank you, Candy. Adeline?
I mean, there is a process. I know that it's usually the deadline is like March 15th or April 1st every year to challenge your assessment, and they don't give extensions or it's a very strict procedure. I also would warn against that because they have a very interesting set of rules that they usually have to follow. Like, I'm not saying don't do it, but I think there might be better ways. I mean, I'm not saying that if you didn't call a tax review judge or whatever, but from my experience, they are very dead set on their rules, and that would actually, if you went by their hearing dates, that would be longer than January, because you have to apply for the hearing by March, and then you don't get a hearing date till sometime in the summer.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a year from now, a lot longer. It's, like, let's say 14 months from now, you'd have a chance, and then it's a slim to none. Because I don't know how they would review something with seniors and stuff. Like, they don't even go based on the income a property brings in. It's a very weird process, and they really don't even explain it to you.
Just talking by experience, that's all. But if that works,
Well, I've gone to these hearings, and
that's
I'm telling
fine.
you
But I'm
that-
just saying, by experience, is what, was a process that I was able to accomplish for an individual. And right now, she's in her home and she did get her abatement. So it's not a one size fit all, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that rather than to leave them high and dry with no solution, at least an attempt is better than none.
I was just gonna add a comment to what Adam said.
Hello? But that is up to the shareholders what they want to do.
I was just saying, it can cut both ways. They can actually review it and also assess it higher if they.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could do a request for review, and then that's even worse. They'll send someone out to the property. And like you just said, they won't look at the seniors and stuff. They'll say, oh, wow, this building is nicer than we thought it was, or whatever.
That's true.
They did in our building already, they sent assessors around to assess a 3-bedroom
Yeah.
apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, and a 1-bedroom apartment. I was one of the apartments. And then that's how they came to, I guess, the 24 million or whatever, but they already started. My building, I think, is the first one. We all moved in 2001, 2002. Yeah, so we're there a long time, and they did assess the 3 different types of apartments. 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 1-bedroom. And they came up with that 24 million.
Well, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm just doing the math.
Okay. Now, this is one of these things, that requires the wisdom of Solomon. And the thing is that there's really no clear cut immediate solution. And the thing is that I'm going to ask for your help to rewrite this, that where it helps, where it helps the residents now, because the thing is very few things that what's in this resolution now helps them, because it's not gonna revive 421A.
Exactly.
So the thing is that if you can help me put something together, and if you here at the table who wants to help, can go as well. The thing is, we'll put together a schedule, and we'll put something out there, and also we can make, and when it's done, we will give it to someone like Cordell Clear or what's his name?
Linda Rose, she's the housing chair for the assembly. That's just the only reason I brought her up, because she's in Manhattan and, you know,
Okay,
she's right across the way.
well, that's what we'll do.
And Dawn is very well aware because I went to Brockman's office and when she was there. So, and
And
again,
Kavanaugh too.
what?
Yeah, Kavanaugh's the other,
Yeah,
city
he's in Albany.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he's in
Senator.
Albany.
He's a senator and he has the housing committee.
Exactly.
He's chair of housing.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, what we're going, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'll be in touch with you. The thing is, we'll get together and start putting this together. And anybody who wants to help, we'll let you know what we're going to need and all that.
We can do it online. We can do an online document so that folks can.
Google Drive.
Right.
Can I also ask that the residents also be able to put in their 2 cents of what they're asking for? So please, because we need to know exactly what their needs are, so we can incorporate this in here and into the language. Please, we gotta hear from them.
Good idea.
I'm gonna come back.
Excuse me,
Yeah, to piggyback, don't just pick 2 apartment buildings that you just know, that we
Right.
got more than, 2 apartment buildings. Try to get a collective voices of everybody that's in CB11, that's in the 421A, instead of the normal to go places, because 342 East 119th Street is being affected, 333 East 119th Street is being affected, and many others around as well.
Is there any way we can get a data of all the, 421 buildings?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay, because this way
that's
we can,
appreciated.
give that information, tell them to give their input
Yeah.
to us, and we can all pull together our ideas and stuff like that to put it into the language.
Yes.
There were a lot of buildings built, not only in this community, but
Right.
all over.
Well, who's
Let's
gonna
start with
Yeah.
community board.
Let's
start with 11.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So that was one of my questions. If the whole city is being affected by this, are you guys coordinating with other community boards? Maybe they have something already started that you
Can't
can.
hurt to ask. If I could be recognized, I guess the easiest way would be, talking to our board chair to see if this has been brought up during borough board. Where that's where all the community boards Manhattan discuss. If it has, then that might be a good, we might be able to. Grip some of the language, that others have used, so I would say that would probably be a good question to ask our board chair.
Okay, I'll contact Xavier next.
Cause sometimes, oh, I'm sorry, there's something, if I can say that, some boards actually have lots and lots of money and they have their own lawyers hired, so if we can piggyback off of, so that's a very good point, because sometimes, other boards have other resources that they cut forth. So that's why I was thinking borough president, or, if we don't get, the borough president.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also think that we need to, have the data of listings of programs that's already here. So if anybody can apply for them now, and use any of the language that they have in it and makes it applicable for people to use, that we have that data also.
This says we want to make sure that you have access to everything that possible that can help you.
Right.
So,
Right.
so that's something that we thank you about. Okay. Other than that, is, any other comments? Crickets? Okay. Thank you for your input, and we'll start working on this at ASAP.
Thank you, guys.
Brian.
Thanks, housing committee. Yeah, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's on the table.
Yeah, they're passing it around.
Oh, it's all perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Any old business?
Thank you, Lydia.
But we have to have some place for,
Well.
If you're gonna,
Yeah.
I think I want Lydia.
We're good.
Oh, that's why we need.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you guys for showing up. We need everybody. Not everyone under this program. Yeah, we would have needed,
No, I don't know. Okay, now, next, old business. The old business?
If we don't talk about it.
Yeah, a lot. New business.
I don't know.
Candy has,
Candy?
I know you guys are probably gonna be sick of me today. So under the new business, I just want to know why we haven't weighed in on the city of Yes and have George James also present here at our committee. So we can have some type of comment coming from this committee, or at least join with the land use. There's just a comment. And the other thing I just really want to quickly say is about that section 8. It's you can live anywhere, not just in Nitron. That's for everywhere, anywhere you want. But I want to go back to my the city of Yes. I'm concerned about that because they're including Nitro in there again, and the language that they're using is also putting it as campus, and I have an issue with that because everything is about language these days, and making sure that we give the layman language to our residents of this community to have some input and housing. Right now, we're at the pillar of, it's we have an issue, and this is very important for our committee not to not even weigh in on that. And that's just my opinion.
No,
Yes.
actually, I have a statement. There's
All
one.
right, that was just my opinion. I was just wanted to know why we haven't done anything with that.
No, one, we haven't met, that's one. That's the second of all, the thing is, I wanted to make a statement that full board was not allowed to. But I raised my hand, they said the discussion that, they want to move the discussion along, so I didn't actually say anything.
What?
But and I'll tell you what my statement was, actually the question. Says, why in God's name would anybody want to invest in the city of Yes? I said, because the only people who get to say, hear the word yes are developers. Tenants get, I don't know, maybe so. And the thing, and that's the last thing that you need. The thing is that no one I know wants to pin anything on a maybe. And that's what the city of Yes sounds like, a maybe.
No.
But that's my statement. That's all I wanted to say. But one second, is that your whole statement, Candy?
No, because what I is for me is a city of no. I agree with you. But I just want us to say that, coming from us, that we're not agreeing with what they're saying, not even in some of the stuff that they're proposing for developers. It's not a one size fit all. It's just crazy. I would
As
just
far
want
as
us
I'm
to just say
concerned-
we don't agree, whatever it is. But if we don't want this, we should just say that it's coming from the Committee of Housing.
As far as I'm concerned, and I'm speaking I am not speaking for this committee, I'm not speaking for the community board. This is reward to developers from the mayor for helping get elected. So the thing is that, and I said, and anybody who's listening.
That's a personal opinion.
It's okay, you could say it. It is what it is.
Okay, but Dawn, then Will.
My proposal is that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, or we have a special meeting to talk about it. To get James to come to this committee as well.
Done. So the timeline for the city of Yes is that the land use committee is reviewing it tomorrow.
To take a vote.
To have full official correspondence submitted by at least the end of this month going into July. So you guys should have taken your time between at least last month to come
So
up with
this
any
should have
kind of.
been anything on our agenda today.
It's so, a comment. So Don, to that point, I emailed Marlene and Angel about this in, where are we? This is June, right?
Yes.
April. When I first came on the board asking, hey, we should comment on this, and I was told that, again, this is the official position, that it was meant to go through land use and only land use for review, because it's more land use appropriate, they were the appropriate committee. I raised this because I thought the same thing that Candy thought, and the same thing that you thought, that there is a lot of overlap on what this committee, our purview is. But was told strictly that the process was, it has to go through land use.
Now, what I can suggest, and the thing is, which I will most likely do. I will attend to the land use meeting tomorrow night.
I'll be there.
Not tomorrow,
By the
I
way,
think it's like next week.
and to follow what Wilfredo just said, because it goes through the land use does not preclude any of you from going to land use and submitting your input.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome, you're encouraged to do that.
Can I, is it tomorrow? It's actually.
No.
Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow
Next
is,
week.
it's next Wednesday, my apologies.
Next Wednesday.
Candy, are you available next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, and I pray I'm even better by then. Yep.
Amen.
Okay.
But we'll all
So if anybody
Be there
wants
or
to
be
attend the
square.
land use meeting, it is next Wednesday, the 12th. It's here, or you can participate by Zoom. Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Oh, may I have the door? That you all look at the land use meeting from last month or the month
The
before.
presentation.
Please look at the presentations. Mr. James did a lot of
Great job.
points that y'all are considering that needs to be addressed. So please look at the land use meetings prior, and the documents that they have. That's on the air table, that's what it's.
Yeah.
Irritation on
Yes,
the table,
it's on the
we're sharing information on our weekly newsletter as well.
Yes,
You can get that on the website.
yeah.
Thank you, Beverly. George James does do excellent presentation. I saw him do one at a city council hearing a few months ago. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, and anyway, like I said, the land use meeting is next Wednesday. Anybody who wants to attend, please do so and express your side. I'll be there, and so anybody else here who wants to attend can do so. Anything else as far as new business? Candy, are you finished?
I'm sorry. I'm done. I just wanted to bring that up because I'm very concerned about that, and I just want to make sure that, they hear us loud and clear. I don't want the same fiasco like the rezoning issue,
Which is part of it too. The 2017, 2018 East Hartford zone is actually part of the city of Yes, I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, so,
But you can put your comments and stuff to the land use website now and send, from the housing committee, anyone here. And send that information,
Senator Jason, yeah, he's been asking people to send him
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah.
so.
Very much so.
okay, but anyway, thank you. I'm just going to make a statement that I hope that just try to make it brief. This has been a really fun year. I mean, the thing is that there was some months we didn't meet, there was some months we couldn't meet. And the thing is that hopefully it will improve. There'll be new people on this committee when we meet again in September. And the thing is, and the first meeting out the box, we're gonna have to deal with budget.
Oh.
So September 3rd and October 1st, that's gonna be the main priority, the budget. So basically, anything, when the budget comes out, look at what was funded. Make notes, see what you want to pay for some more. If they funded something and it wasn't enough, just say that you want to put it back. If it was funded to your satisfaction, we can remove it, and also one other thing. With the new people, they're gonna feel like they've been thrust into the middle of hell because they're gonna want the whole thing. But so if you can mentor someone, I would appreciate it. That's it. Basically, hopefully all of you have a good summer. Hopefully I will see around the district, during the summer, and the next housing committee meeting will be on Tuesday, September 3rd at 6:30 p.m.
The day after Labor Day?
Yes, ma'am. First Tuesday of the month.
Summer school?
Oh, we might.
We'll definitely need it for the,
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that.
Okay.
Okay, but, can we, you can do roll call?
Got it. Adem Brihop,
Present.
John Green,
Out.
Alfredo Lopez. Here. Beverly Pavone,
Present.
Claudia Perez.
Present.
Thank you. Cynthia Ramos. Thank you. Dawn Sanders.
Yes.
Thank you. Candy Vives Vasquez.
Present.
Thank you. Everybody say your chart.
By the power vested in me by Community Board 11, I announced this meeting adjourned at 8:40 p.m. Have a great summer, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
You need the objective language. I was trying to.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it up from last year's,
Last year.
last year's, like, not even the